podcast where we compare theme park offerings from coast to coast. We don't always see eye to eye, but we try. I'm your host, Alli, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, CJ. CJ, how are you doing? Happy Halloween.
Hi, Alli. Happy Halloween. How are you doing?
You didn't answer how you're doing.
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm a little tired. I stayed out kind of late last night. I went to Oga's Cantina last night. So I'm a little tired there, but I'm ready for Halloween, handing out candy. What are your plans tonight?
Probably gonna watch Hocus Pocus and put out the bowl of candy on the porch and let the trick-or-treaters come by.
I wonder how long it'll last.
You know, last year, we didn't get many last year. I'm hoping we'll get some more this year. Otherwise, I will be left with a lot of Snickers left over, and I don't like Snickers. So,
Oh, there you go. Well, I hope you have a good night tonight.
you too. Yeah, you
Thanks.
taking the kids out?
Yeah, Felix is going as Florida Man, and Violet is his pet gator, and she's just going to be sitting with me handing out candy. So there you go.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. Yes, we are recording this, as you have figured out, on Halloween. But we will not be talking about Halloween anymore. This episode, we want to talk about the Disneyland Resort and the Walt Disney World Resort overall as a vacation experience. So we're going to be talking about getting there, hotels, surrounding area, just the whole enchilada. Speaking of hotels, we've each stayed at a couple of the resort hotels. For me, I know we stayed in 2000. I was but a wee child. I don't remember much of it. I know we stayed at one of the All-Stars and the Contemporary?
Yes, the Contemporary.
Anyways, I don't count that because I don't remember it.
I don't count it either.
At the Disneyland Resort, I stayed at the Disneyland Hotel and the Grand Californian. And then in Florida, I have stayed at the All-Star Sports and the All-Star Music Resorts. CJ, what about you?
So at Disneyland Resort, I've stayed at all three on-property hotels. That was a lot of fun. They're all great in their own way. And I've stayed at the Contemporary at Walt Disney World, which of course I don't really remember too much. Stayed at all the All-Stars, Pop Century, Caribbean Beach, Saratoga Springs, and Animal Kingdom Lodge, Kidani Villas.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
You've been more times than I have. Now, I just point of clarification. You said all three resorts at Disneyland. So we have the Disneyland Hotel, the Grand Californian, and what's the third one?
The Paradise Pier Hotel.
Yeah. And does that one still have the back entrance into California Adventure?
It does not. That went away, I want to say like mid to late 2000, before 2010.
Wow.
Is that called the aughts? The 2000 aughts or something?
Yeah, the 20 aughts, I think.
20 aughts. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for our listeners who don't know, at the Grand Californian Hotel, there is an entrance directly into California Adventure. And Paradise Pier Hotel used to have their own entrance to California Adventure as well. You would just cross the street, you'd cross, that's not Harbor Boulevard, you'd cross Disneyland Drive, and off to the right, there would be an entrance kind of near Goofy's Sky School. There's a little gift shop over there. It was back there, but that has since been closed off.
Let's talk about the locations of each of these resorts. CJ, you're our Disney World expert. You live in Central Florida now. Give us the rundown.
Yeah, so Walt Disney World is located basically in the middle of Florida. I mean, a lot of people say, it's in Orlando, and technically it's in its own city, Lake Buena Vista, which is like part of the greater Orlando area. For our Disneyland friends who haven't visited Walt Disney World, it's on about 25,000 acres of land. It is huge. It's like its own operation.
It's a lot of land.
It is a lot of land, and like you really can't walk from park to park like you can at Disneyland. And like driving around, it's not like filled to the brim with Disney stuff. Like you can go between parks and see trees and wildlife and stuff like that. And then when you get outside of Walt Disney World, once you leave, when you drive, there's all these big gates that say like Walt Disney World Resort, see you soon, stuff like that. So once you leave the gate, if you're on the west side, it gets to suburbs kind of area, a couple hotels, but mostly suburbs. It's like where I live. And then the other areas are like kind of touristy, like the eastern and southern side. You've got the city of Kissimmee, and you've got the Universal area, and then downtown Orlando. So it's a really good mix. The area is a really good mix of suburbs, touristy stuff, city life. It's kind of got it all.
Nice. Disneyland itself, Disney property is around 500 acres in the heart of Orange County in Anaheim. So in the surrounding area, there's lots of city around it. Disneyland is actually basically right off the 5 freeway.
Yeah.
And when you're driving on the 5 freeway, you're like, oh, yep, there's the backside of Toontown right there. You can see it when you drive by. It's really kind of strange.
Yeah, and that's a big difference between Walt Disney World and Disneyland. Like you can be on the I remember driving up the 5 freeway and playing the game of who can see the Matterhorn first, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't really see the parks in Florida from outside the park, like from the road from your driving, unless I mean it's funny when I drive into the parks, I can see Expedition Everest for like 2 seconds, and then it's covered by trees while we keep driving on. So yeah, Disneyland's like really really compact in there.
and I think a lot of that has to do with like when it was built and how it was built, because Disneyland was built in the 50s in a former orange grove, and the city of Anaheim kind of sprang up around it, and the surrounding areas really developed around it, and it was built really densely. And then by the time, 20 years later, that they were building Disney World, they had all this land in Florida, and they had, you know, the experience to know, hey, let's spread this out a little bit more.
Right,
Also,
right.
land in Florida was much cheaper,
Yeah,
to my
yeah, and
understanding.
they kept the price low by buying under like fake company names so that they wouldn't jack the price once they saw the Disney name. So they were able to get a ton of land out here. And honestly, if you haven't been, like you can tell there's places where they could easily build a fifth gate, a sixth gate, more hotels. Like they've got the space out here.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the on-property hotels at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. How many on-property hotels are there at Disneyland?
So we kind of touched on this already. There are three. It's the Disneyland Hotel, the Paradise Pier Hotel, and the Grand Californian Hotel. There are Disney Vacation Club rooms at the Grand Californian, and there are Disney Vacation Club villas coming to the Disneyland Hotel.
Yeah, and there's not that many. There's only 3 hotels at Disneyland versus over 25 at Walt Disney World. So at Walt Disney World, there's just a ton. I feel like I read a statistic somewhere that it would take you like 60 or 70 years to stay in every single hotel room at Walt Disney World. Like, I don't know why you would do that, but I guess you could. So there's just a crazy amount of rooms, and that kind of gets into the price point difference of hotel stays. The on-property hotels at Disneyland, because there's so few of them, they're so expensive per night. Whereas at Walt Disney World, you have the value resorts, the moderate resorts, the deluxe resorts. And if you're on a budget, you could easily stay at the value resort and still be part of that magic.
Yeah, and those value resorts include the All Stars, which that's where I stay.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. I like the All Stars too.
Yeah,
Um,
the All Stars have really cool pools.
they
Just
do.
putting that out there.
They do. They're so much fun. And then some of the resorts at Walt Disney World are DVC only rooms, or resorts. So like Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa, technically that's just DVC units, studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, three bedrooms. And for those of you who don't know what DVC is, that's Disney Vacation Club. That's Disney's timeshare program. And even though that's a DVC only resort, like if it's not full, Disney can release those rooms to guests paying in cash. So it's not, I mean, I would highly doubt if it's 100% always DVC occupied. I'm sure there's cash paying guests frequently. There's just a huge variety of room types at every price point at Walt Disney World. All right. Speaking of DVC, let's talk about what's happening with DVC at Disneyland. There's been some news about DVC at the Disneyland Resort. What's going on?
Yeah, so there are DVC villas that are coming to the Disneyland Hotel. They have apparently broken ground. I haven't been there to witness it myself, but they have apparently broken ground and don't know what the current status is. But they're going to build an L-shaped tower to close the like little box layout of the Disneyland Hotel towers because there's 3 towers there.
Yeah, there's 3 towers arranged in like an open box with one side not
Hmm.
closed off, so that the new tower will close off the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen. the concept art for it, because they have released some of the concept art, like the three towers, the Adventure Tower, the Fantasy Tower, the Frontier Tower. They're all just straight up towers with like
Hmm.
hallway down the middle and rooms on either side, right?
Standard
The
hotel stuff.
Right, exactly. The new DVC villa that's coming, the tower that's coming is an L-shaped building where on the bottom of the L, some of the rooms are like staggered. Um, it's very strange looking. And then the pool is facing away from the resort. So the L opens up towards like residential areas of Anaheim. So I guess if you're sitting at the pool, you have a nice view of houses and condos, whatever else is back there on the other side of Disneyland. I thought that was strange because the fireworks are the other direction.
Oh,
Yeah, but
interesting.
I guess what they're going for is maybe more guest rooms will have views of the fireworks as opposed to the pool area having a view of the fireworks. I just thought it was kind of weird.
Well, I'm not an architect, but I would hope that the architects know what they're doing. So let's put our trust in the professionals.
I mean, the Imagineers rarely lead us the wrong direction.
This is true.
But the DVC rooms, they really need more DVC rooms at Disneyland. At the Grand Californian, there's like less than 100 rooms there for reserved for DVC. It's a very small portion of the rooms there. So having an entire tower dedicated to studios, one bedrooms, two bedrooms, three bedrooms, that'll be great for occupancy rates at Disneyland. And then at Walt Disney World, there's 9 DVC resorts total. I've stayed at 2 of them, Saratoga Springs and Kidani Villas over at Animal Kingdom Lodge. And I would highly doubt if at any point every single DVC room is fully occupied. I don't think that's the case here.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are not a DVC member, is that right?
Correct. I'm not a member. So what you can do is you can go to a DVC point renting site and guest, I'm sorry, DVC members who are not able to use their points or don't want to use their points or want to earn some extra cash, they can rent out their points, and like non-DVC people can rent their points to go stay at a DVC resort. So that's typically what we do. And the last, year and a half or so with COVID, a lot of like international guests who have DVC points couldn't get here. And so like their points would go to
Right.
waste unless they rented it out. So for a while there were points going for really, really cheap. You could get excellent deals on rooms. So that's usually what we do because we can stay at a deluxe resort for about the same price as a moderate resort. So there you go.
Hey, that works.
Yeah,
Saving money is always a good thing. I don't care who you are.
exactly. So now that we've talked about the different types of rooms and hotels at the resorts, let's talk about extra experiences at both Walt Disney World and Disneyland Resort. So Alli, why don't you talk about some of the extra things that you have done, as well as just general offerings at Disneyland and Disney World, if you want to.
Yeah. So Disneyland, I did some of the Disney races. So I ran the half marathon in 2014. Realized I never want to run a half marathon again. Um, but I ran the Star Wars 10K in 2015. That was the very first one. And I have since also volunteered at several of the half marathons when it was open to corporate groups, and through our dad's work, we were able to get in to man some of the water stations. Very early mornings, but it was worthwhile because for a time, and I'm not sure that this is still the reward, but they would give you free park admission. You'd get a free ticket to use. I don't think they're actually doing that anymore. It's
Yeah.
a different way to sign up. You have to go through a staffing agency, and I'm not sure what the compensation is anymore, but I don't think it's a theme park ticket.
Yeah, I mean, the races, as you know, have been canceled at Disneyland for a few years now. And now that I moved out here and they just, like, the first race back in person is coming next weekend. So I was looking into volunteering. I just Googled, like, Run Disney volunteering, and there's a website up where you can sign up to volunteer. It didn't say anything about, like, free tickets or anything like that for volunteering. And it seemed like most of the positions were reserved for groups, like volunteer groups, which I'm not a
Right.
part of a volunteer group, but I put my name on the wait list to volunteer at Princess Half Marathon, so we'll see if I get in there.
Yeah, if you get a chance to do it, not just you specifically, CJ, but anybody who's listening, if you get a chance to volunteer at a race, if you're like me and you realize that running is the enemy, like volunteer at the races. It's actually really fun, and you get to cheer on these runners who are working so hard. Um, And it's a really rewarding experience.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And it's really cool to see the different type of costumes that people wear while they run. And honestly, some of these people are really inspiring, and it's part of what makes me want to run. Running is not my favorite, but when there's Disney involved, it becomes one of my favorite things. So it's, it helped encourage me to like get into run Disney events. So I totally agree with you there. It's a lot of fun to volunteer.
Other events at Disneyland, there are tours that you can do, I believe. And there's D23 will occasionally have events that are not necessarily in the park, but sometimes in downtown Disney. For instance, my mom and I got to go to the world premiere of Tomorrowland, if you remember that movie. And it was wild, and I was a foot away from George Clooney at one point, and then
So jealous.
it was awesome. After the movie, they said, "All right, everyone who is at the premiere, park is open to just the people who are at the premiere. Go have fun."
So jealous.
Mom and I ran into Richard Sherman at the exit to Space Mountain, which was amazing.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Richard Sherman is like one half of the Sherman Brothers, legendary music writers and songwriters for the Walt Disney Company.
Yeah, if you can think of a Disney song from like the 60s, 70s, like odds are Richard Sherman had a hand in it.
It's a Small World, yeah.
Yeah.
written by him, yeah.
Yeah, so that's about all I've got for Disneyland. Do you want me to talk about Disney World and my experiences there as well?
Sure, let's hear it.
All right. So Disney World in 2000, we went to Blizzard Beach. No, Mom, we did not go on Summit Plummet.
I know, Mom insists that we went on that over and over again, but that's like the tallest slide there.
It's a tall, steep slide that looks like you're about to go off a ski jump, but really you go through it because you're going straight down and they're not going to launch you into the air. No, we were like, what? I was 8 years old. You were 9.
Yeah.
Like, no way. There's no way we were going on it then.
No, absolutely not. Sorry, Mom. We did not go on Summit Plummet. I don't think either one of us ever will.
No. We did Disney Quest, which I have no memory of, except for we got a Disney Quest backpack. That's
which
the
still
only
exists.
thing I remember.
Yeah, we still have that somewhere. I think Mom and Dad
Somewhere.
have that.
Probably.
Yeah.
In more recent years, I did the Wild Africa trek at Animal Kingdom. That was really fun. The food was really good as well. I went to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party in 2018. Also very fun.
I didn't know that you did that.
Yeah, it was me and my best friend, and we went for her birthday, and she was like, Halloween is my favorite time of year. I really want to do this Halloween party. I'm like, done, let's do it. So I dressed up in costume. I dressed up as the evil queen from Once Upon a Time.
Nice.
It was great. It was really, really warm. I regretted it.
Yeah. October here can kind of go either way.
Yeah. We watched the parade. And we didn't really do any of the like trick-or-treating experience. Because I had arrived that day at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that was our only day at Magic Kingdom. So we just tried to get in all of the rides that we could that were open for the party, rather than, focusing on the trick-or-treating, because you can get candy anytime.
Yeah.
And that's
the way to do it.
From 20-something adults. If you have kids, you might want to get the candy.
Yeah, a little bit of a different story there. Yeah.
I did a couple of dining experiences that I just want to touch on really briefly. I went to Cinderella's Royal Table on my honeymoon because Cinderella is my girl. She's my princess. And we got to see all the princess dining, and I didn't realize that this was geared towards younger kids, but I was like, you know what? I'm sitting here in Cinderella Castle on my honeymoon, and I am happy.
And that's inside the castle.
It's inside the castle, and we got to do a meet and greet with Cinderella before we went in for breakfast, and it was way too early in the morning. But we also, on the way in there, it's way too early in the morning. Nobody's in the park yet. We got a beautiful picture of just the two of us with Cinderella Castle in the background. It was wonderful.
That's the way to do it. And I don't think they're doing breakfast anymore since the parks reopened from COVID. But like if they start doing pre-park opening breakfasts again at Cinderella's Royal Table, Be Our Guest, Crystal Palace, like you can get some really good pictures there before the general public gets in.
And the last dining experience was at Epcot, and I couldn't find any information on what this was called. But the same trip that I did the Not So Scary Halloween party, my friend and I went to Monsieur Paul for this really fancy dining experience. It wasn't just your regular lunch. It was I don't even know how to describe it. They like brought out little appetizers and they brought out like 4 different sandwiches to eat and little macarons for dessert and oh man, oh those croissants.
Croissants.
Oh. With
Croissants are
apologies to
always
the
good.
French for my accent.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It was fantastic.
Yeah. Oh man, I love the food, honestly, at both coasts. They're so good. So I'm gonna go back to Disneyland here for a minute and the things that I've done at Disneyland. There's something that you and I did together that not a lot of people get to do. It's called Minnie's Moonlight Magic, or maybe
So
Moonlit
much fun.
Magic. It's so much fun. It's for cast members only. And full disclosure, I don't know if they do this anymore with COVID being a thing, but basically, after the park closes to the public, cast members form teams of, I believe it's 2 to 4, maybe 2 to 6 people.
Sounds great.
And it's like a scavenger hunt throughout the park, but you have to be tied together with a rope. So every year we kind of picked a theme. We did that, what, 2 or 3 times?
I think we did it twice.
Yeah, it was you and me, my coworker, and her sister-in-law, I believe. But we would wear like glow sticks and stuff, and we would tie the rope around our waist and attach it with carabiners, and we'd run through Disneyland like solving puzzles essentially. It was so much fun, and that was a really cool event.
Yeah,
Other
we
things.
did one at Disneyland and one at California Adventure. I remember that was the year that the California Adventure one was the year that Moana came out because we did the wayfinding over Paradise Pier.
That's right. I remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that was fun. Other things I've done at Disneyland, they used to have a garden tour. I don't remember what it was called. It wasn't Behind the Seeds because that's at Walt Disney World. But basically, it was a tour of all the gardens at Disneyland and how do the gardens tell the story and what are some gardening techniques that they use. And we got to go on a couple rides with that. But one of the things that stands out to me was when you're in Fantasyland, especially right in front of the carousel, there's kind of that like crosshatch pattern in the garden. And they chose that pattern because it's a lot like what the English and French castles have in their fantastic gardens. And when you're just a casual visitor to the park, you might not think about the gardening techniques that they use and why do the gardens look like the way that they do, why the plants look like the way that they do. But like that tour is really good because it just goes to tell you that everything is part of the story, down to the little details and the dirt and the plants. So that was really cool. And then I also did the Christmas time tour, and this came about because they hired new cast members to give the tour to guests. And so as a cast member, you could sign up to help them train. Like you were basically a guest for a day, and they would go through their script and take you on the tour essentially. So I didn't know anybody on the tour. It was just all these other cast members and then me. But that was fun. It was a free tour for me. So there you go. And then you and I also did this event together, the e-ticket tour. Do you remember that one?
Is that the one when we stayed at the Grand Californian?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so this tour doesn't exist anymore, at least as of a few years ago. It didn't. Basically, what it was for guests of the hotels. You sign up at the Grand Californian, and it was for specific ages. We were teenagers, right? We were probably like 13 or 14, something like that.
I'd say maybe a little bit older than that, but yeah, we were teens.
Okay, we're teenagers, and everybody else on the tour was around the same age, and it was basically just a tour of the e-ticket rides in the parks. So our parents, I think Dad had like a work event or something. That's why we stayed there. Dad had some sort of awards or meeting or convention or something at the hotel. So Mom and Dad were off doing dinner, and they sent us on this e-ticket tour, and we just cut the line for all the e-tickets in the parks.
Yeah.
So and it was with a bunch of other people our age. It was just that was fun. That was fun. It's like a taste of freedom in the VIP way at Disney.
Yeah. And for if you didn't want to go on a certain ride, they didn't force you. So
Right.
Shout out to the tour guide for not making me go on Tower of Terror.
Yes. Okay, other things I've done at Disneyland. You touched on we've done Run Disney events, which unfortunately don't exist anymore at Disneyland. I hope they come back.
Me too.
Yeah, and then we did something that also doesn't exist, the Void VR experience.
That was a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
that was a lot of fun. It was in downtown Disney. You don these Void VR goggles. I don't even know what to call them.
Headsets.
Headsets, yeah. And you're running through like a Star Wars story and you're given a prop gun and you have to like turn around and shoot at things. But unfortunately, that no longer exists.
It was like VR meets laser tag.
Yeah, it was
Like
really cool.
you could not move on until you took out all the stormtroopers too. It
Yeah,
was great.
yeah. It was really cool. Now, over at Walt Disney World, you talked about Blizzard Beach. We also rented boats when we stayed in the year 2000. If you've never visited Florida, there's water everywhere. There's
Yeah,
ponds,
there is.
lakes, whatever, like you name it. We rented boats in the year 2000 when we stayed here. We also, my husband and I have done mini golf at Winter Summerland. There are 4 mini golf courses, so that's cool. And I've done Run Disney here. I've done the Behind the Seeds tour, which is a walking tour of the greenhouses at Living with the Land. Super fun, super affordable. Highly recommend it. There's also a barber shop on Main Street, USA. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Yeah, it's called Harmony Barbershop. And Felix, my son, had his first haircut there when he was about a year old. They're really good with kids. And compared to like normal kids' haircutting place, the price is very, very reasonable. Um, I've also done Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. I did that once in 2014. That was cool. I've done Disney After Hours events before the price got out of control. It was like $85, $89 to do this After Hours events, which is different than the Christmas party. Um, the number of guests was severely limited. My mom and I did everything at Magic Kingdom. And I've also done a tour called Starlight Safari over at Kidani Village at Animal Kingdom Lodge. And that's, they've got animals on the savannah and stuff, and Animal Kingdom Lodge has their own savannas. So we were in this open air truck. They gave us night vision goggles, and we like drove around and looked at the animals. So that was really
That
cool.
sounds amazing.
Yeah, and that was an affordable tour too. I was impressed, and I think guests like non-resort guests can do that too because there was a couple who had driven in from Kissimmee or something like that. So yeah, a lot of different tours, a lot of events. But overall at Walt Disney World, like there's way more to do, way
Mhm.
more than Disneyland. I mean, Disneyland has a lot of things, a lot of events and tours and special experiences. There's even more at Walt Disney World. There's 2 mini golf course facilities, but each of those have 2 mini golf courses. So there's technically 4 mini golf courses. And then there's 4 full-size golf courses. You can do horseback riding, Segway tours, boat rentals, fishing excursions, bicycle excursions. There's Splitsville, there's a movie theater, Cirque du Soleil. There's so many things to do. So
And
many
that's
things.
all without leaving Disney property.
Yes, all without leaving Disney property. And it's just like I feel like I'm always reading about something I've never heard of before.
Yeah. And Disneyland doesn't quite have that much. You can go bowling at Splitsville Lanes. There used to be a movie theater in downtown Disney. There used to be ESPN Zone. There used to have House of Blues. But there's not a lot of that sort of extra experiences, extra entertainment
Yeah.
on Disney property.
Yeah,
Like
you can't.
obviously there's stuff to do in the city of Anaheim, but if you were looking at staying at only on Disney property, there's not much there.
Right, you're gonna have to plan to Uber or rent a car and go somewhere. But I will give Disneyland credit because if you want to go see like an Angels baseball game or you want to go see the Anaheim Ducks in a hockey game, it's like what, 10 minutes down the road?
It's
Maybe?
very short.
It's
I
very
know for
short.
a fact that you can run from the Disneyland Resort to Angel Stadium in Anaheim
Yeah, part of
because
the
that
half
was
marathons.
exactly that was part of the half marathon course.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really close. There's some great shopping malls around, and of course downtown Disney and everything. And the beach is not far from Disneyland versus at Walt Disney World, it's a lot further. So, yeah, I mean, I think in my opinion, this boils down to the size issue, right?
Mhm.
Disneyland just doesn't have the space to accommodate all these extra things.
Right. But one thing Disneyland does have going for it, there are no gators there.
This is true. There are no gators. In my time as a cast member, I did see some strange animals backstage. Well, not backstage, but after the park closed. Saw some weird things. I saw a possum once. It kind of freaked me out. So I don't know if I'm rating which one of these is better based on like extra experiences. I've got to hand it to Walt Disney World at this point.
So let's talk about getting to the resorts. For Disneyland, for me, you know, depending on where you're coming from and what you want to do, um, if you're staying only on Disney property, if you're staying at a Disney hotel or at one of the very, very close ones, and you're only doing Disney theme parks in downtown Disney, all you have to do is get there. You can take a ride share from the airport, take a shuttle from the airport, take a taxi from the airport, and you're set.
Yeah.
Everything is within walking distance.
Yeah, that's a big benefit for Disney. And even if you're staying off property, you can walk pretty much.
Right. If you want to do anything that's not Disney, if you want to hit the beach, if you want to hit one of Southern California's many other theme parks, a rental car is probably your best option. Or if you're, local or coming from somewhere that's reasonable to drive there, your own car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. And actually, like, this is kind of a way that Walt Disney World and Disneyland are similar because once you get to Disney World property, as long as you're only doing Disney World stuff, you don't really need anything. Your transportation's taken care of. And it's not because you can walk, like, it's a very large resort. Walt Disney World provides transportation options for you. There's free buses, there's the Skyliner, monorail, boats. There are some places where you can walk a little bit, like from Contemporary to Magic Kingdom or between some of the boardwalk area resorts. But once you're there, you're there. And like you said, similar to Anaheim, if you want to go someplace else, I mean, it depends. Like you can arrange there's a ton of Uber and Lyft drivers here. A lot of cast members do that in their off time just to pick up more money, more hours. So you can Uber and Lyft pretty easily to like Universal. There are shuttle services to get you there, or you can just rent a car. But yeah, in general, I think if you're just going to Disney and don't plan to go anyplace else, you're fine. Just get there.
It's almost like Disney really wants you to stay on their property, so they make it easy to do so.
I wonder why that would be.
Weird how that
So,
happens.
if you're vacationing to Walt Disney World and Disneyland, how many days do you think somebody should schedule at each resort?
For Disney World, you need at least 4 days, 1 day for each park. If you want to, and that's hitting the highlights of every park. That's not doing every single ride and attraction. That's you can get the highlights of each park in 4 days. If you want to get all attractions, I wouldn't even know. If you wanted to get things like walk around Disney Springs, do some of that horseback riding and golfing and the other stuff you mentioned, I wouldn't even know. I just know the bare minimum for Disney World. You need 4 days.
And now, in that 4 days, does that include your arrival and departure days?
Depends on where you're coming from. So, like for me, flying from Texas to Florida, it's a short flight. There is a time difference, but it's a short flight. My departure day, I can take an 8 p.m. flight.
Right.
Very, very last flight of the day. And that's fine. And that works for me. So I would count my departure day as one of those 4 days. Arrival day, maybe. So last time I went and did, all the parks, I did arrival day, Magic Kingdom, 2 parks, and then my departure day, Animal Kingdom. I don't remember the order in which I did the other 2, but we did a park a day, and that included arrival, and that included departure. And I mean, honestly, for me, the only reason that I was okay with that, I mentioned I arrived at like 1:00 in the afternoon. And that was Magic Kingdom was our first day. And I was fine with that because I grew up going to Disneyland. A lot of the rides are the same or very, very similar. So I was fine with not doing everything and just hitting some of the highlights.
Right. Yeah. And I think for repeat visitors, that's probably the case as well, right? Especially if you're on a time crunch. You don't want to waste time doing things like the teacups or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, for me, I would also agree with you 4 full days at a minimum if you're a first time visitor. Or if you're coming from further away, I would do 5 or 6 days. I'm thinking, when we lived in Southern California, it was about 5-ish hours to get there at least.
Long flight.
Plus like commute time to and from the airport. And if there's a layover, like it could extend your day. So that first day was really just lost to traveling. And I can imagine, for international guests, it's the same story. So, to give a comfortable answer, I'd say 5 to 6 days. Minimum 4. if you're a repeat visitor, I think you could do 2 or 3 days, depending on how far you're coming from. If you're coming from like Georgia or something, you could do a 2, 3 day trip very easily. And then for Disneyland, what do you think? How many days do you think people need?
So you can hit the highlights of both parks in 2 days. One day at Disneyland, one day at California Adventure. You can hit just about everything you need to. If you want to hit everything, you can do that in 3 days, depending on, crowds and whatnot. But I would say that you need 3 days to hit everything in both parks comfortably.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you on that. And when you're looking at like if this is a once in a lifetime trip for you, I would definitely do 3, maybe even 4 days at Disneyland because there is a lot to do there. A lot of rides and attractions, even though there's not so many extra experiences compared with Walt Disney World. So I used to be a cast member at Disneyland. I worked at the hotels, and a lot of the international guests would like tack on a trip to Disneyland as part of a bigger like 2 or 3 week vacation across the entire United States, or some of them would just do like San Francisco, Anaheim, San Diego, Vegas, maybe Yosemite or something like that, and move on. So again, it really depends where it falls in your vacation. If Disneyland is your sole reason for visiting, I would say 3 days. If it's part of a bigger vacation, 2 to 3 days. If you really want to do everything, 4 days is what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's talk about like how well you feel immersed in the magic when you're at these resorts. So Alli, you can talk about both Disneyland and Walt Disney World and kind of give your perspective on that.
Well, for me, I am 100% in the magic all the time. Disney, the Disney parks are a magical place for me. So when you're in the parks in California, you can't really see outside the parks. You can't see the freeway. When you're on the freeway, you can see the Matterhorn, but when you're on the Matterhorn, you cannot see the freeway. So that I think Disneyland has really going for it. And Disneyland itself is like its own city that's smack in the middle of the city. Like if Anaheim is Rome, Disneyland is Vatican City.
I like that analogy. If you've been to the Rome or if you've been to the Vatican in Rome, that's exactly how it is.
Yeah. Walt Disney World though is like its own city. And like when we a couple months ago when I was out visiting you, we went to breakfast at the Contemporary, right? That's where it was.
Yep.
And we took this little back road out, and I'm like, that Space Mountain that we just drove by, like, 50 feet. Granted, I'm no athlete, but I could throw a football and possibly hit Space Mountain from here. Like,
right.
that's weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. And like at Walt Disney World, you can't really see much outside of the property unless you're really searching for it. Like what you're saying, we went to breakfast at the Contemporary. This was a very short period of time where the Wave was hosting breakfast at the California Grill because it was undergoing refurbishments. And California Grill is on the roof of the Contemporary. And like your eye is drawn to Cinderella Castle and Magic Kingdom, and then you start looking beyond that, and you're like, oh, there's some houses. Oh, there's other things out here. And it's once you enter those gates, it's like, welcome to Walt Disney World. It's hard. You can't really see outside the Disney bubble. Disneyland, and we touched on this earlier, Disneyland is so tightly compact in there. Like there's houses right on one side, the 5 freeway on the other side. It's so close in there. And yet you cannot see outside of the park, except for very short snippets if you're standing at the right spot. They do a really good job of making you feel like you're in Cars Land or you're in Fantasyland or whatever it is.
You have to know exactly where to look
Yeah.
if you want to. You have to be looking for it if you're looking for outside the park.
Yeah, and the strange thing is about Disneyland and California Adventure, once you leave property, like that's it, you're done, right? You're immersed in city. Whereas here, you leave property and you're like kind of still in the trees for a while, for the most part. It's things are not as tightly compact in Florida as they are in California. But the other thing I wanted to touch on was like Disneyland is a lot smaller of a park. And one thing I hear a lot from people who are used to Walt Disney World and the grandness of it is like, wow, Disneyland is so small. I was not impressed. And I can see that if you're used to seeing Cinderella Castle standing so tall at the end. It's a very grand sight. But Disneyland, I think there's beauty in the details. Like there's like having that small space, they make use of every single piece of land, every single corner, every single walkway. Like there's theming and detail on that. And I don't know that I see that so much in Walt Disney World. Like there's walkways in Epcot that just look like a walkway in a business park. Like it looks clean and well kept, but I don't know that it's really telling a story. Same thing like with the hub area in Magic Kingdom. I might get totally flamed for this by people who like love the hub grass. But to me, it's like a park. It looks like a park, like a neighborhood park with like a
Yeah.
couple of pretty fountains, and there just happens to be a castle in the background. Like I have a hard time telling what the story is. Whereas at Disneyland, like the hub has all those flowers around it and like beautiful blooming trees. Like it's just so pretty, you know?
Yeah.
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 And part of that horticulture tour that I took at Disneyland, they talked about how the flower beds like right in front of the castle, they choose pink and blue because it's Sleeping Beauty. Make it pink, make it blue, right? So
Yeah.
that's again telling the story. So yeah, it's just gardens and it's not like a huge castle or anything, but there's a beautiful moat with plants that tell part of the story there. So I think as far as like that kind of magic, I think Disneyland does a far better job than Walt Disney World.
One thing you mentioned was the height of Cinderella's castle, and that just reminded me of funny little anecdote. I don't remember which trip this was, but I was getting ready to see the fireworks at Magic Kingdom, and I was so hyped because I got the prime spot right in front of the castle, and then fireworks start, and like I can't see half of this because the castle is in the way. You
Oh,
know that
interesting.
that prime spot in Disneyland is right in front of the castle
Hmm.
because it's a lot shorter, and
Yeah,
the fireworks come up around it, and it's absolutely beautiful. That is not where you want to be at Disney World because
interesting.
you can't see half of what's happening.
Interesting. Huh. I haven't, when I usually watch the fireworks at Magic Kingdom, I try to go in like Frontierland area because it's so much more open. I don't want to be surrounded by people like that. That's an interesting point. Let's talk about how many attractions each park has. And full disclosure, we used Wikipedia to count because Disney's website, if you've ever been on it, it's just not the best website out there. Maybe one day they'll improve it. So, Allie, how many attractions does Disneyland have?
Now, before I get into this, just want to clarify, attractions encompasses rides, it's shows, it's
Like
just
character meet and
anything,
greets?
character meet and greets, anything you can do within the theme park.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but on Wikipedia, they're still counting things that have not reopened yet from COVID. I'm
Um,
pretty sure.
I haven't been to Disneyland since pre-COVID, so I
Yeah.
couldn't say for certain, but I wouldn't be
Okay.
surprised.
Yeah, because like the Frozen show live on stage at California Adventure, that has not reopened yet, but this is, that's probably on the list on the Wikipedia. I don't think Wikipedia is updating what's come back and what hasn't come back yet.
Yeah. And the Wikipedia that I looked at for Disneyland said as of March 2017, so it may not even include, Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, so we need
Um,
to count like two or three more there because we've got Rise of the Resistance, Smuggler's Run, and I think Droid Depot and Lightsaber Building count as experiences.
yeah, I would count those, even
Hmm.
if Wikipedia doesn't.
Hmm.
That said, somewhere in the family of 53 attractions at Disneyland,
Hmm.
which that's a small park to pack a lot of attractions in.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, according to Wikipedia, Magic Kingdom only has 37 attractions.
Wow.
And I was looking at the list and thinking in my head, like, yeah, that looks about right. I don't think they really missed anything. Yeah. So people say things like, oh, there's nothing to do at Disneyland. Like Magic Kingdom has more. False. Disneyland has more
Yeah,
attractions than Magic Kingdom does.
that is objectively false.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cannot argue that.
Yeah, these numbers don't lie. They just might be slightly inaccurate because Wikipedia is not always the most reliable source of information. Disney California Adventure is more in line with what Magic Kingdom has.
Mhm.
California Adventure has 34 attractions.
Right. Right.
And this, from what I could tell, it did seem accurate. It had accurate meaning up to date. It had the Guardians of the Galaxy ride instead of Tower of Terror. It had Avengers Campus. So it did seem to be pretty current for that.
Okay. Yeah. So rounding out the rest of Walt Disney World, there's 30 at Epcot, 24 at Hollywood Studios, and 26 at Animal Kingdom. So total between 4 parks, not counting the water parks, 117 attractions at Walt Disney World versus how many at Disneyland?
87.
Yeah. So that, if you're not familiar with the layout of either park, like that just goes to show you, like Disneyland Resort is what, 500 acres, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, versus 25,000 at Walt Disney World, and you've got 117 roughly attractions at Walt Disney World over 25,000 acres versus 87 at Disneyland with only 500 acres. Like things are really tightly packed in there.
Yeah. It holds its own.
Yeah. I mean, this doesn't count like the tours and boat rentals and fishing excursions and horseback riding and stuff. But Disneyland, people say like there's just not much to do there. I have heard people say that, and that's just wrong. I'm sorry, that's just wrong. I will defend Disneyland like to the day I die. There is a lot to do at Disneyland. And if you haven't been, like it really is tight. Like think about Mr. Toad's and Alice in Wonderland. They're around the corner from each other, and Alice in Wonderland is a 2-story dark ride. There's 2 stories to it, right? You start on the ground floor and you eventually wind your way up. Mr. Toad's exists like under that second floor portion. Like they pile things in there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, actually, there's some video floating around online of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride was stopped for a breakdown, and they could hear the audio from Alice in Wonderland. Like that's how close it is to each other. Yeah, and then like Casey Jr. Circus Train and Storybook Land Canal Boats. Those are in the back behind Dumbo. They run. One of them's a boat ride, one's a train ride, and they wind around each other. They're so close.
Yeah.
So for me, like Disneyland makes the most of their space, and Walt Disney World, especially Fantasyland, I'm just kind of disappointed that they don't put more in there. They very easily could. They very easily could.
So there's a lot more room in Florida, theme parks and, outside the theme parks. What else is there to do off Disney property?
Yeah, so there's SeaWorld, there's Universal, which they have 2 parks and a water park. There's Legoland, and SeaWorld has a water park as well. I think Legoland does. Not 100% sure. I haven't been there. There's a lot of shopping. There's a lot of outlet malls here. That's one thing I didn't realize when I moved here, how many outlet malls there are. There's a ton of dining options. I mean, there's, Disney Springs, of course, has a lot of shopping and dining, which we're going to get to in another episode. But there's also like Universal City Walk and the mall at Millennia is a pretty big area. There's a lot to do. And then getting even further outside of the greater Orlando area, there's the Kennedy Space Center. So if you happen to be around for a shuttle launch, you can go watch a rocket launch, or you can tour the center. There's gator tours. There's a lot of nature trails around here. Like there's just a lot of fun things to do. There's something for everybody, I think.
Sure sounds like it. And the Anaheim and Orange County and Southern California, just going from small to larger, there's a lot of the same things. There's Universal Studios in Hollywood, there's SeaWorld in San Diego, there's Legoland in San Diego. So and yeah, that's a couple hours down the freeway depending on traffic, but a lot of those theme parks you can still get to from the Disneyland Resort pretty easily. In addition, there's Knott's Berry Farm, which is a lot closer to Disneyland, and they have a water park too as well.
Yeah.
At Knott's.
Soak City, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. There's Six Flags Magic Mountain. If you didn't quite get your adrenaline fill from riding California Screaming over and over again, you can go to the beach. You can go to the Santa Monica Pier. You can go around Hollywood. There's a ton of museums in LA. You can go see the Angels play. You can go see the Ducks play. You can go see the Kings play. You can go see the Dodgers play. You can go down to Irvine and pop in the Great Orange Balloon and take a little hot air balloon ride.
And you know what? You know what's coming to Irvine? Coming back to Irvine? Wild Rivers Water Park.
Okay, they say that every year.
No.
Is it actually happening?
They're selling season passes starting tomorrow. So it's actually there's going to be a water park very close to Disneyland. I mean, not Soak City is pretty close, but I think Wild Rivers will probably be better. It'll be brand new.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's coming back.
The water park of our childhood is coming back.
So looking at and I know you didn't touch on this, but there's shopping and dining all over Southern California.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. So looking at this, it's funny because I hear people say, well, I don't want to go to Disneyland because I want to do other things outside of Disney World. Like I want to go to Universal. It's like, well, okay, California has Universal too. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things to do in California, and I don't know that people are necessarily aware of that. And I think maybe it's because they're not right on top of each other.
Yeah. Just honestly, bring your car or rent a car and you can get to them easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easily. You just might have to deal with the LA traffic a little bit, but if we dealt with it for 20 plus years, you can too.
Yeah, it's not that hard. And it might be kind of fun for a family to do Orlando trip one summer and then California trip the next summer and just do some comparison there.
Yeah.
Because it's been 16 years since I've been to Universal Hollywood and I've never been to Universal Orlando, but I know the parks are different. So that would be kind
Yeah.
of
I
fun
mean,
to see.
for one, there's only one park in Universal Hollywood.
Yeah.
So,
Only one. Yep. But it's also, I think Universal might have a more authentic experience because those are actual movie sets that you drive through.
it's very cool.
It's in there in Hollywood. So
Yeah.
yeah. I think both coasts have an equal amount of things to do. It's just how much do you want to drive,
Yeah.
right? Right. And what style of vacation do you want to have? But
Now that we have all the facts laid out, it's time for the final showdown. Can we see eye to eye? Does one coast stand out above the crowd? CJ, what are your thoughts?
okay, this is very, very, very difficult for me because I grew up going to Disneyland, but I also spent a lot of time vacationing to Walt Disney World. And I've experienced Disneyland, like staying in the hotels and kind of doing it as a vacation. So I have, pretty good experience with both. My heart will always be Disneyland is my favorite park, hands down. Like that's not going to change. But if you're looking at keeping it Walt Disney World Resort versus Disneyland Resort and not considering the outside areas, I think Walt Disney World Resort provides a better vacation experience. And to me, the difference is like there's more on-site hotels and there's just more extra activities to do. If you want to go catch a show at Cirque du Soleil, you can do that, or House of Blues, you can do that there. There's more shopping and dining in Disney Springs than there is at Downtown Disney. There's more resorts to choose from, resort activity. Like some of the resorts have 5Ks that you can sign up for and get a little medal. I just think there's more to do on property. Even though Disneyland has a very high number of attractions for how small it is, Walt Disney World Resort takes the cake as a vacation experience for me.
Yeah, I think we see eye to eye on this one. If you're, this is not theme park to theme park. This is resort overarching everything to resort. And I think you're right on this one. I think that Disney World as a resort and as an overall vacation destination is gonna win for me as well. And this was not an easy decision.
No, it wasn't easy for me either.
It's agonizing to
Yeah.
make me pick one over the other because Disneyland is such my happy place. It's like it's my second home.
Mm-hmm.
But and I'm not just saying this because I feel I've really only vacationed in Florida where, Disneyland is just, hey, let's go and be home for lunch.
Right.
So, but I think you're right here in terms of as a vacation resort, Walt Disney World takes the cake.
Yeah. Now, it's not to say, I mean, it's hard because if somebody from like, I don't know, Canada was saying, hey, I'm going to go to Disney, which coast should I go to? I think I would end up recommending Walt Disney World, but I'd also make a push for Disneyland. Like I really would. There's things
Yeah.
that Disneyland Resort, I think holidays at Disneyland Resort are done better. I think most of the ride equivalents at Disneyland are better. If you're really into Marvel, I'm sorry, you're not going to find that at Walt Disney World due to some like copyright, legal rights issues.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
go to California Adventure for that. So I think in certain cases, I would be pushing for Disneyland over Walt Disney World, depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, it ultimately depends on your situation and what you want out of your Disney vacation.
Yeah. In the end, I'm going to give the very slight edge to Walt Disney World Resort as a vacation destination. I think that's the winner by just a smidge.
I agree. So thank you all for joining us for our discussion on Disneyland Resort versus Walt Disney World Resort. as vacation destination. What are your thoughts? Do you think we're right? Do you think we're wrong? Let us know. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Park2Park Pod. That is Park, the number 2, Park Pod. We also have an email. You can email us with questions, feedback, tell us we're wrong, tell us we're totally right. Let us know what we should talk about. You can email us at park2parkpod@gmail.com. Park, the number 2, parkpod@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review for us wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us for this discussion tonight. And next time, we're going to be talking about 2 heavy hitters, the flagship parks of each resort, Magic Kingdom Park versus Disneyland Park. We're going to look at, the attraction offerings, the restaurants, the shows, the lands, you name it. We're gonna dive deep into that. So join us next time.